in Iraq. Many members, including the ranking member and I, have sought the administration's commitment to securing their protection given the Iraqi government's repeated failure to comply with its international human rights obligations to the Camp Ashraf residents. And in light of President Obama's announcements of the final withdrawal of American troops from Iraq, we need to be confident that our administration is engaged with the government of Iraq, the UN High Commissioner of Refugees, and others to ensure the welfare of Camp Ashraf residents and to resolve their long-term security goals. With respect to Camp Ashraf, which we deeply are concerned about, we know that there is an ongoing and very legitimate expression of concern. We have elicited written assurances from the government of Iraq that it will treat Ashraf residents humanely, that it will not transfer residents to a country they may have reason to fear, and we are pushing very hard to get the United Nations High Commission on Refugees to work with the residents of Camp Ashraf
and the
government to get them into a safe place.
I think many of us saw this ad about Camp Ashraf featuring a 14-year-old girl who fears extermination. We face a tough circumstance in that we are withdrawing from Iraq. In the past, there have been some would say massacres, at least terrible instances in which tens of people have been killed. And there are press reports that the Iraqi officials say, well, don't worry about it too much. After all, these folks are on the U.S. terrorist list. What are we doing to assure that when we leave Iraq, we will not see the massacre of 3,400 people at Camp Ashraf? And how's it going on the court-ordered review of whether the MEK should be on the terrorist list?
On those points in particular, Congressman, in accordance with the D.C. Circuit's 2010 ruling, the State Department is reviewing the designation. There will be a decision. It has to be done expeditiously but thoroughly, and we hope to have such a decision in the future. I would add that the current designation does not pose a bar to the resettlement of Ashraf residents in Europe, and the humanitarian situation at Ashraf, in our opinion, is also not related to the MEK's designation. And I think it's also important to recognize that we need to do as much as we can to move as many people out of the camp before the end of the year, and we are trying to do that. We're working primarily through the United Nations and certainly with both the residents of Ashraf and the government of Iraq to try to put in place a very rapid assessment of individuals, and we have urged the EU and other countries to favorably consider the resettling of any Ashraf resident granted refugee status, because we want to shrink the numbers as best we can.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Sherman.
You stated that we're going to do as much as we can in terms of Camp Ashraf. You are not doing as much as you can. It's been 500 days since the court was ordered us to reconsider this terrorist designation, and that should be plenty of time to understand what the issues are. And other people around the world now have determined that they don't put them on the terrorist list, so we are not doing as much as we can. And I would hope that you take that up and do as much as you can to ensure there's not another massacre of people there that we could have prevented. Let's note that we have officially requested the State Department for information about the Camp Ashraf massacre. Do you intend to comply with that request as we have been told the State Department will, or are you backtracking from that commitment?
Well, Congressman, we will provide what information we can to you.
We can sounds like the operative words of how to get out of answering a question. You obviously have the records of your own department. Are you going to provide it? You have a request from Congress. You have agreed to do it. And will you comply with that request?
We certainly will comply with the request.
Okay, thank you.
But I cannot tell you what will be in the reply.
That's not.
So that is the qualification of my answer.
All right.
Judge Poe is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll try to make this to the point. Last time you and I talked in this very room, we talked about the safety of Camp Ashraf. That was in March, and then later in April, Iraqi soldiers came in and killed people in Camp Ashraf. People disagree on how that occurred, but people did die. Right now, the 31st United States is leaving. I'm not discussing that, but also on the 31st, Maliki has made it clear that the camp is going to close. When we were in Iraq this summer, Chairman Robacher, myself, and others on this committee, we met with Maliki on the issue of Camp Ashraf. It got very heated. We wanted to go see the camp. He refused to let us see it. And later we learned when we were flying around in a Black Hawk that we had been invited to leave the country based upon that discussion with him. But the number one thing he said about the way Iraq treated Camp Ashraf was the U.S. designation of the MEK. He spent all of his time saying, this is the reason they're treated the way they are, because you, United States, have designated them as a foreign terrorist organization. My concern, first of all, is the safety of the people in Camp Ashraf when that 31st comes. They're in fear. 85 of those people, some are Americans, and the others of that 85 that are there, among the 2,000, are permanent residents of the U.S. So my question is, what are we doing through the UN to make sure they extend the deadline so that people can do what's necessary through the UN to get out of Iraq and go somewhere in the world? And second, the long-term issue of the MEK designation. I'm encouraged by your words last night that you made regarding that. So those are my two issues and my two questions to you, Madam Secretary.
Well, Congressman, I can assure you that I am personally very focused on trying to make sure that we protect the safety of the residents of the camp. I and our department and our administration strongly condemned the violence that led to the deaths. Regardless of how it happened, the fact is, you're right, 36 residents died because of the violence on April the 8th. We are monitoring the situation as closely as we can. We see no evidence suggesting that there is any other imminent attack on Ashraf, and we continue to urge the government of Iraq to show restraint. As I said earlier, we do have written assurances from the government of Iraq to treat the Ashraf residents humanely, to follow their international obligations, which they have, as long as the residents remain in the country, and not to transfer anyone to any country where that person could be persecuted as a result of their political or religious beliefs. And so we are trying to nail down as much as we can to provide some protective screen for the residents. Now, we know that they have approached, that we have also pushed the UNHCR to have even more of a presence, to do more, to try to move as many of the status determinations as they can. So this is an area of deep concern to us, and we are moving on many fronts, and we're also going to move as expeditiously as possible to a final resolution on the designation.
And do we have any time frame on the designation?
I cannot be more specific than that, Congressman. That's as expeditiously as possible.
Well, I would just want to re-urge you and the administration to make sure that when December 31st comes, bad things don't happen to those good folks in Camp Ashraf. And all of the politics, we need to set it aside fulfill our obligation, since they put their weapons down as the MEK, that they get refugee and asylum status somewhere in the world, but their safety is paramount. So I would just re-urge that, Madam Secretary.
I appreciate your urging. I appreciate the concerns, and I take them very seriously, sir.
I'll yield back, Madam Chair.
Thank you.